In fact, shakubuku, the translation is normally translated break and subdue. You can imagine Nichiren Shonin talking about the Shingon and Ritsu, the devil and hell, break and subdue them. But what it's talking about is breaking misguided attachments, misguided ideas, and subduing suffering and evil. That's the idea, in a direct way, to challenge people's ideas. So Nichiren Shonin said, Shoju, shakubuku, which one to use, depends on the circumstance. So I'd like to read one writing. Okay. All those who want to practice Buddhism should know that there are two ways of propagation: the persuasive, shoju, and the aggressive, shakubuku. All Buddhist scriptures, sutras, and commentaries must be propagated through these two ways. However, scholars in Japan today, though they seem to have learned Buddhism in general, do not know how to meet the needs of the time. The 4 seasons differ from one another. It is warm in summer and cold in winter. Flowers bloom in spring, and trees bear fruits and nuts in autumn. We sow seeds in spring and harvest crops in autumn. How can we harvest crops in spring by planting seeds in the fall? Heavy clothes are for the cold winter, not the hot summer. A cool breeze is needed in the summer, not in the winter. So depending on the situation, the method of a teaching is different. So, in the Lotus Sutra, there is a clear examples of both of these two ways of teaching: persuasion and directly challenging people. So, if you have your Lotus Sutras, first I'd like to look at chapter 14, Peaceful Practices. So, it's page 210. So, chapter 14 talks about teaching shoju, teaching in a persuasive way. Chapter 14 is about this one. And in chapter 14 there are 4 practices, 4 ways of practicing teaching, which we can find. So on page 210, the bottom paragraph, the second paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 14 lines down, about halfway down, it says, first he should perform proper practices, approach proper things, and then expound this sutra to all living beings. And then the bottom paragraph, it says, what are the proper things the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should approach? He should not approach kings, princes, ministers, or other government directors. He should not approach heretics, aspirants for the teaching of Brahman, Nirgantas, writers of worldly literature, writers of non-Buddhist songs of praise, and it goes on. So it gives a list of people not to approach. So this is called the pleasant practice of body. And it's not discriminating, or you should not teach this person and this person and this person and this person. It's warning us to be careful about approaching people with power, people who may take advantage of us. So this is the first one. And then, next one, on page 216, 1, 2, 3, the 4th line down, He should not point out the faults of other persons or sutras. He should not despise other teachers of the Dharma. He should not speak of the good points or bad points, or the merits or demerits of others. He should not mention Shravakas by name when he blames them, nor should he do so when he praises them. This is a pleasant practice of the mouth. So if we look at Nichiren Shonin's practice, actually sometimes he did point out faults of other sutras, and sometimes even other people. So this is a persuasive way, this way, but the Nichiren Shonin sometimes took another way, more direct way. So that is a pleasant practice of the mouth. And then the third one, page 218, after the 3 stanzas where it goes into prose again, third line, it says, a bodhisattva mahasattva should not nurse jealousy against others, or flatter or deceive them. He should not despise those who study the way to Buddhahood in any way. He should not speak ill of them or try to point out their faults. This is a pleasant practice of the mind, how our mental attitudes should be when teaching. And lastly, page 220, after the stanzas again, the 4th line down. The bodhisattva should have great loving kindness towards laymen and monks, and great compassion towards those who are not bodhisattvas. He should think, they do not know that the Tathagata expounded expedient teachings according to the capacities of all living beings. They do not hear, know or notice, or ask a question about it, or believe or understand it. So this is a way of teaching people without directly challenging their ideas, but gradually teaching them to understand. So this is the first way. The other way, does anybody know the direct way of challenging in teaching? Which chapter of the Lotus Sutra is the break and subdue chapter? You might be surprised. It's chapter 20. Never despising bodhisattva. This is Shakubuku. So Shakubuku, this is page 286. All the time Nichiren Shonin quoted this one and used as his example. The second paragraph down, it says, there lived arrogant bhikshus, arrogant monks, in the age of the counterfeit of the right teachings of the first powerful voiced King Tathagata, that is, after the end of the age of his right teachings which had come immediately after his extinction. Those arrogant bhikshus were powerful. At that time there lived a bodhisattva called Never Despising. He took the form a bhikshu. Great power obtainer. Why was this bhikshu called Never Despising? It was because every time he saw bhikshus, bhikshunis, upasakas or upasikas, he bowed to them and praised them, saying, I respect you deeply. I do not despise you. Why is that? It is because you will be able to practice the way of bodhisattvas and become Buddhas. This is break and subdue. Directly challenge people. And it says afterwards that people threw tiles and sticks and stones at him, abused him with words, and became angry, because he was directly challenging their idea. They didn't believe they can become a Buddha. They didn't really understand or believe Buddha nature. So this monk, his practice was to go up to somebody and then, I respect you, you will become a Buddha in the future, and then bow. That was his direct way of challenging them. And then people got angry, and then he ran away to a safe distance, and then he shouted from afar, I respect you, because one day you'll become a Buddha. So that is not what we imagine as aggressive, but that is a direct challenge to their concepts. So based on that one, Nichiren Shonin taught, and sometimes used harsh speech, but because he was trying to get people to awaken. Never with anger. His teaching was not based on an emotion like anger. It was based on enlightenment or compassion. So he was using harsh words, but for purpose, not based on just anger, being angry. So even some of Nichiren Shonin's followers weren't sure about this one. Some of them said, oh, Nichiren Shonin's way of teaching is very direct, and it doesn't seem to be having a result, and all the time he's persecuted because of how direct he is. He should take a more gentle way. Play it safe. Be sensible. But he responded to that. He said, people are suffering. People are really deeply suffering at the moment. It was his responsibility to inform them of the truth and give them a way out of their suffering. If he ignored that responsibility, he was not bodhisattva. He would be condemning them, ignoring them, forgetting about their suffering. So he had a kind of duty of care towards suffering people. So we are bodhisattvas, aspiring bodhisattvas, as Siddhaman Sensei mentioned. So first we have to have our foundation as compassion. And Sensei mentioned jihi, the Buddhist idea of compassion. And yesterday you did a meditation on loving kindness, right? So this is a very interesting thing. Jihi is 2 Japanese words, but in the Lotus Sutra it mentions 4 words, which are ji, ki, and sha. Okay. These are 4 things. So, as Siddhaman Shonin mentioned, ji. This normally we see translated as loving kindness. So, yesterday you meditated on this one. That means giving happiness to other people. That is the first one. And then the next one, he. Sometimes this is translated as compassion, but it's a bit vague. So this means giving people happiness. This means removing people's suffering as a set. So loving kindness, giving people happiness, removing their suffering. And then the next one, ki. Empathetic joy. This is being able to be happy for people, share their experiences, and have a connection with them. And then the last one, sha, it's translated as equanimity. Equanimity. Which means, with this one, do all of these 3. So equanimity means these 3 have to apply equally to all people without prejudice or exception. So loving kindness for all, under all situations with no exceptions, and compassion, removing suffering for all, and empathizing with people, all of them. No differentiation between people based on attachment. So this is a basis. Altogether, these 4 we can say generally compassion in English. This is a foundation of a bodhisattva. And then based on this one, we try to help others and teach Buddhism to make them happy, remove their suffering, and give them joy. Because if we don't give them joy, what's the point? That's the point of Buddhism, right? To be happy. So okay. So when we think of Nichiren Shonin's teaching career, his persecutions all of his life, of course, I don't want to be exiled and have my life threatened. I don't want to take it that way, or we might shy away from that. But on the other hand, a bodhisattva has a responsibility, as Sensei mentioned, to teach and make other people happy. This is a great vehicle, Buddhism, not just my enlightenment. Together we work towards enlightenment. So how should we teach? With a gentle way, persuading people, or directly challenging their misconceptions and unskillful, harmful ideas? Depends on the situation and the person, and maybe also on your ability. So, but it's important to think about teaching, because as we read in the opening ceremony yesterday morning, we read Shohoji Sosho, and it says, even if a phrase or a word of this sutra, try to spread it to others. So how can we teach others? No need to be a minister. Everybody can do. So the Lotus Sutra has a very good way to suggest a practical way to teach. So if we could look at chapter 22. Okay, page 297. So, the way to teach Buddhism is not to attack and insult people. But apart from the fact that that probably wouldn't work, they wouldn't want to become Buddhists. That is not the Buddhist way. If you look at the bottom of the page, the third line from the bottom, it says, when you see anyone who does not receive this sutra by faith, so when you see somebody who does not believe this sutra, does not practice the Lotus Sutra, you should show him some other profound teachings of mine, teach him, benefit him, and cause him to rejoice. When you do all this, you will be able to repay the favors given to you by the Buddhas. So the important words in this part are, second line from the bottom of 297, you should show him some other profound teachings of mine. And the next important word, teach. And then benefit. And then over the page, cause him to rejoice. Those are four words, show, teach, benefit, and rejoice. This is a way to teach Buddhism. So first of all, simply show. We can share our faith and the practice of Buddhism by showing our behavior and example. People naturally pay attention to somebody who's living properly. They might not immediately, but they realize, oh, something's different about him or her. They have something. So First of all, just show. Not shove down their throats. Just show. And then, next step is they express some interest. Oh, you're Buddhist. Oh, what kind of Buddhist? Oh, Nichiren Shu is Japanese. Oh, interesting. And we practice the Lotus Sutra. Okay. Could you teach me? That is next one. So then, explain the teachings simply. And then, next one, benefit him. So that means try to give a practical solution to their problems. If you show, oh, I'm a Nichiren Shu Buddhist, I believe in the Lotus Sutra, and then you teach, oh, the Lotus Sutra says this, this, and this, and then it doesn't benefit them, what for? Pointless. So we should know how the Lotus Sutra can benefit us and other people. And then over the page, cause them to rejoice. This is the impact of the benefits. So these are four things: show, teach, benefit, and rejoice. This is a way to spread Buddhism. So, using these four things, I think it's more easy to naturally share our practice with others. Being English and having sensitivities about proselytization and missionaries and this kind of thing, I really, really recoil whenever I imagine propagating religion in an open, forceful, pushy way. Makes me very uncomfortable. But Buddhism is not like that. Just show. And then, if people ask, explain. And then pass on the merit and make them rejoice. That, I think, is everybody can appreciate that way of teaching. So, we are bodhisattvas from underground, bodhisattvas in this world. We live in on Earth in the UK, so we have a responsibility for people in the UK, the same way Nichiren Shonin wanted to be the wisest man in Japan, because he wanted to help people of his country. First, we have to start at home and help the people around us in the UK or Holland, or so like that. And both other senseis, they mentioned the four bodhisattvas of the earth, the four leaders. So Tsukumoto sensei mentioned on the Mandaraga Honzon, the Odaimoku down the center, and then Shakyamuni Buddha and the Taho Buddha, and then either side the four, 2 and 2 bodhisattvas. And the Nichiren Shonin said, okay, not for sure, but maybe I might be this one, Jogyo Bodhisattva, because look at my life. The sutra says this will happen and this will happen, and this person will come at this time and teach Buddhism. Nobody else is doing. It looks like it might be me. So if so, that's the one, Jogyo Bodhisattva. How about the other 3? Who are they? Maybe Paul and Gary and Yoren? I don't know. Maybe. But we should think, not just to follow Jogyo Bodhisattva, okay, he's a leader, and then I'm somewhere down here. We should look to Nichiren Shonin's life to aspire to at least approach his understanding and the way he lived his life by teaching. So we can do in our own ways. So, as Sensei mentioned, everybody has a different ability, characteristic. So in the same way, we can use, we can show and teach, benefit, and cause people to rejoice based on our individual natures, and then together work towards enlightenment. So I will finish there. Thank you very much. Does anybody have some questions or comments or you want to share? Yoru? No? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. And one more time, Odaimoku to finish 3 times. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you very much.